Welcome to another episode of On the Hook. Servicing a fishing reel can be as complex or as simple as you want to make it. You can open the reel and take everything out of it, lay all the parts out, completely clean them, or there's some smaller, simpler steps that you can take that are less intimidating to do. We have the classic round Ambassadeur bait casting reel, which is probably one of the most simple reels to open and to service. And stay tuned to the end for my secret reel service tip. You're going to want to see this. So before you get started working on any reel, of course we're going to need some lubrication for the reel. To make your life easiest, I recommend this Abu Garcia service kit. Now I'm sure other companies make these as well. This was the one I use and I really like it. If we look inside of it, it has everything you need. So we've got a degreaser to clean the parts. We've got your grease, we've got your oil, and a screwdriver. That's really all you need. A couple other really handy things to have is an old toothbrush, cleaning parts, some Q-tips for getting into tight spaces, and some type of heavy paper towel, napkin. So to service a fishing reel, you're primarily doing two things. You're cleaning out any old dirt and grease and oil from the reel, and you're adding new, fresh oil and grease to the reel. Now there's some principles that we use. Bearings get oil. Pretty simple. Oil is nice and thin. It'll penetrate into the bearing and lubricate all those tiny ball bearings inside of there. Gears get grease. Grease is thicker and it will stick into these teeth and create a smooth operation to the reel. So I'll just really quickly remove the handle, the star nut, and the side plate and show you how that works. Don't do that. Most of the time this thing will fly off and you'll never find it again. Luckily it ricocheted off the wall and came back to me. So when you're removing that, just a quick little tip, there's a small little snap ring that goes there that holds the handle on. This is just a feature of the Ambassadeur reels. I'll put it back on to show you. Get your screwdriver in there and hold a finger so that when it does come out, it doesn't fly away like it just did. That's a rookie mistake. So then you can pull off everything else and get down to the inner workings of the reel quite easily. So now I've removed all the screws and pulled the side plate off. I removed the handle and the star drag. So what I can do is put my finger over this main gear bushing and pull the side plate off. Now we have a couple little tension washers there, and you can see how they're creating a spring effect by opposing themselves. So with anything like this, just make sure you're taking note of how things are coming apart and put them back together the same way. You can see that these are curved in against each other. That's an important thing to remember when putting the reel back together. Now from here, what I can do is I can go ahead and disassemble the entire inner workings of it, or quite simply, I can leave everything exactly how it is, and I won't have to worry about things going in the incorrect place. I can kind of hold things in place and take my toothbrush, clean out any old dirt, grease, oil, and whatnot, and go back in with fresh grease. An important thing to note is you don't want to go overboard with either your oil or your grease. Just enough to fill in those teeth is enough. Anything else is going to fly out and gum up all these other working parts. Anytime you have parts rubbing against each other, you want to lubricate that. One way you can do that without taking this reel apart is use a little bit of gravity to drop a little oil down inside of there. That'll lubricate it enough. And like I said, don't go overboard with this. Just enough to fill in the teeth is going to be plenty. And as long as you're taking a lot of time to go through and clean out all the little parts and pieces, getting all that old dirt and grease out of there, then you're probably going to do a significant improvement in the way the reel's going to feel and function. If you're a little bit more daring and you've got your exploded diagram, well then you can go ahead and pull more things apart here. Just make sure as you're doing that, you're laying things out the same order as you took them apart, like so. That way when you're going back in, you'll know, okay, this one came next, and then this one came like next. Then we can move on. This is the axle. A little bit of oil is good on that. A little bit of oil. And we have our centrifugal braking system. You can take a tiny, tiny, tiny drop of oil inside of those. Because what these do is when you're casting, as the spool is spinning, they'll fly out and come in contact with this ring here, creating friction, slowing your cast, and creating any tangles in the line. You see we have a bearing down in there. Small drop of oil is plenty there. You can pull the spool out quite easily as well. We can put a small drop of grease on there. We also see that we have a idler gear down in here. Small drop of grease on that. If we turn the reel over, we see the line follower mechanism, and by turning this little gear here, we can see its function going back and forth. Now one thing I like to do here is I'll take my Q-tip and just run it on there to clean out all the oil and grease. A small amount of grease back in here once you have it all clean. Take note to see that you don't have a lot of dirt or buildup in that worm gear. That's going to cause you some issues. You'll also see underneath here, there's a small hole where the pawl is. So the pawl looks like this, and it follows inside of that track there to bring your line follower back and forth. So you can add a small amount of oil right in there, and that'll help it to move freely, because as it goes from side to side, it does a little turn. It'll help it move freely down in there. And really, if you've cleaned everything and gone through with a small amount of grease and a small amount of oil, you're going to be in good shape. That's really all you need to do. See, it's not as intimidating as you might think. So hopefully you found this helpful. Now, if you do run into a situation where you're really stuck, and don't panic. There's service centers all over Europe for Abu, Penn, Mitchell, for most reels, and we'll put a link in the description so you can reach out to them. Another thing you can do if you don't want to deal with this at all, or you have some major malfunction on your reel and you need parts, you can actually send your reel in, and folks like who have the job that I used to have working on reels will fix it for you. There's not a huge cost associated with it, and if you have a broken reel, it's a good idea. Certainly better than buying a brand new reel if you really want to keep the reel that you have. And then now for the secret tip. I wanted to show you some real quick ways to diagnose failures in a reel, things that have broken in a reel or will likely need the parts replaced. If you have a lot of noise, what you do is you just free couple the reel and spin the spool, and you'll be able to hear and diagnose any bearing noise there. If you want to test the drag on your reel, put your thumb on the spool and turn the handle forward. Then you'll be able to feel exactly what's going on with the brakes of your reel, and you can adjust the star drag and go harder and harder, and you can even test the max braking of your reel. Just clamp your thumb down on the spool and turn it forward. You can see this one's got a really strong, healthy brake. If you're finding that you have this all the way forward, you have your brake completely down, and you're still not getting the type of drag that you think you should be getting, a couple things could be happening. Your drag discs that are part of that main gear just need to be cleaned off. You can dry them out really good and reassemble. Another possibility is those small pressure washers are not assembled correctly. They're probably assembled like this and not like this. Like I said, those pressure washers should always be in like a spring-loaded motion. Another great thing that we always check with reels is we'll spin it and we'll keep an eye on this line follower and make sure it's going back and forth. If you have too much dirt or grease in this, or you have a broken pawl, what you'll see is it will start to stutter to one side or the other most often. Sometimes a quick cleaning can help with that, but a lot of times you're going to need a new pawl or a new worm gear. We'll put links in the description for service centers for a lot of reels. If you have any questions on the reels that you have or have any issues, write down in the comments below and we'll try and answer those as best we can. If not, refer you to a good service center and they can either answer the question or give you an address that you can send your reel into. Thanks for watching, guys.